Hey, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start the Finance Committee meeting. So I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order, please. Doug, are there any public speakers?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 public speakers this afternoon. First one being Marshall Shemito, followed by Jason Pinero and Murray Bowden.
Okay.
Pinero, I'm sorry.
Is the first speaker here?
Is there a Marshall Shemito up here? No. So next would be Jason Pinero. Thank you.
Good afternoon to the Finance Committee. One thing to consider, since that last month you guys passed the Atlanta ticket, we should consider doing the same thing for those who live on the Hudson line between Riverdale and GCT. Because these commuters, they only have very limited transit options. So I think that the Finance Committee should consider doing a field study with the PCAC to see how feasible it is to have this type of ticket who benefits living between Riverdale in the Bronx that has to commute to Grand Central. But other than that, I'm looking forward to see how the budget is going to be running, and I hope that the money is spent wisely. That's all I have to say for this month.
Thank you. Murray Bowden next.
At the Metro-North Committee meeting this morning, I said that they have to immediately replace the president for cause. Cause being that the law is being ignored, safety is being decreased, and specifically at the Mount Kisco Roaring Brook crossing, they have a red box there, which is illegal. They won't accept it. The law is the law, and they won't follow it. Beyond that, traffic lights at that intersection would prevent people with a red light camera from crossing. It is completely legal to go around a gate when flashing red lights. It is not legal to pass a red light. And it can be done legally. I am super sensitive about following the law 100%. You make me do it, I want you to do it. The simplest one is the red box. They won't fix it. They continue to blow the sound the train horn at 125th Street, and there is no requirement to do it. It was done by New York Central Railroad. How long is New York Central before Penn Central? 50 years ago? And you're going to invoke a 50-year-old regulation and enforce it today? At New York City Transit, I asked that the chief engineer of the New York City DOT be replaced, and I know him very well because I worked with him for many years. The law says if the line is on your left, it's yellow. Can't get it through his head. At the 63rd Street exit on a FDR
Mr. Bowden, please conclude your remarks. You're running out of time.
I've run out of time in my life. I'm about to check out because I'm 85. You guys are going to be around a long time. Our grandson just came to stay with us for a month because he got a new job in New York City. I got a lesson about the generational gap. These young kids have got to take over. My generation has to give up. We've been around too long, and you know, you don't like me. What are you going to do, lock me up again?
Please,
the MTA already locked
your remarks.
me up. Of course, I'm trying. I'll be around not much longer. Maybe some of you ought to get out of here, too.
Thank you. Is that it for the public speakers? I believe, yes. I believe.
Okay. Next, we have the approval of the May 21st minutes, and may I have a motion, please?
Correction.
Okay.
Yes,
Commissioner Alpert.
on the paragraph just prior to Finance Watch in the minutes, where it's referring to a comment I made, there's a misprint there. It should say, may come in separately instead of may come it separately. Other than that, I move to approve the minutes.
Well, we'll make those changes.
Thanks.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Doug, can you take us through the work plan now, please?
Yeah, there are no changes to the work plan. So next on the agenda is Budget Watch for June. And in this month's Budget Watch, we're going to focus on May preliminary operating results and subsidy cash results through June. In a familiar story, passenger revenues in May were $10 million unfavorable for the month, and that's increased the unfavorable year-to-date variance to $66 million. A lot of that is a continued downward trend in subway and bus ridership. Partially contributing to the overall variance is commuter rail revenue has been running a little bit lower than budget. The good news is on toll revenue, we were again favorable, $7.5 million in May. That's raising the total year-to-date favorable variance to $26 million. And that offsets about 39% of the passenger revenue loss through May. Moving to expenses, for both the month and year-to-date, they're very close to budget. There's timing variances swinging both ways. We're seeing vacancy savings, higher overhead credits from reimbursable project activity, savings from Easy Pass customer service center efficiency savings, that's at B&T. We're seeing some overages and overtime overall at the agencies, especially transit, other maintenance costs, and those include the Subway Action Plan and startup costs for the LIRR's forward plan, which is, like I said, just starting up. With regard to the SAP, we feel that, or we're confident that the projected costs, including any overtime overages, will be provided by the additional funding provided by New York State and New York City this year. Moving to debt service, those costs were favorable for May and year-to-date due to the timing of deposits, and we've had lower than budgeted variable rates. To subsidies, subsidies in June were favorable by $51 million, bringing those results in line with the budget. The urban tax is doing pretty well, actually. That was $15 million favorable in June, and that's increasing the year-to-date favorable variance to $66 million, partially offset with MRT receipts, which they were on budget for the month, but unfavorable by $22 million year-to-date. Included in those year-to-date subsidy results were unfavorable timing impacts for MTA aid and the payroll and mobility tax. We got a little slightly favorable timing impact for TOA. Adjusting for timing, overall year-to-date subsidies would be basically on target, maybe slightly favorable. So I've given you a lot of ups and downs. I'm going to try to summarize the overall picture that we see. Overall, we're pretty much on target, maybe slightly favorable. On the favorable side, we've seen favorable toll revenue, real estate revenue, and debt service. Offsetting that is the lower passenger revenue and PMT and MTA aid, although we feel a lot of that is timing. Going into the July plan, we're seeing the below budget receipts and passenger revenues that continue to be a matter of concern. We see costs for maintenance and IT that are expected to increase in later months as those programs ramp up. And we'll be addressing all those issues in the July financial plan, the mid-year forecast for 2018. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The way we characterize the Subway Action Plan sounds like it's not technically part of the budget, but is going to be added to the budget?
If you recall, in November and December, we had a fully funded assumption on the Subway Action Plan. Going to February, we did not have any assurances of that funding that we were hoping for. So we had what was called a scaled-back Subway Action Plan, which was the basis for the budget. Subsequent to that February plan, the legislation that was passed by New York State included additional funding by New York City basically giving us the funding that we had hoped for, which is consistent with the operations that have been running. So while we're reporting over budget SAP results, the July plan will include those new subsidies, and we're pretty much in alignment then with that, with the fully funded SAP, the 2017 to 2018 plan.
I guess my question is really a technical one. Do we have to amend the budget to reflect the
Well, the last budget
subway
was
action plan?
the last budget was February, and that was actually approved by the board. July is it's a financial plan that isn't approved by the board, but we will in fact amend the mid-year forecast, so it will be in alignment with those subsidy projections.
And then my second question, which I assume is incorporated into the operating costs, is that our budget contains a significant amount of money in sort of operational savings. And are those savings, that savings program, is that on target?
So if you recall, we had a pretty aggressive savings target for this year, $214 million. It was captured below the line in the February plan. As we get ready to do July, we take those targets and we distribute them amongst the agencies, and we also hope to accomplish some savings ourselves. While those have not been finalized yet, we're doing pretty well overall in that. So again, though, by hitting those, we need to hit those targets just to remain neutral to where we expect it to be. So it's very challenging, and then even beyond this year, we have greater targets. But I think the agencies understood the seriousness of the targets and the need to achieve those. I actually applaud them for the efforts taken so far.
So just to be clear on that, because as you say, we have even more aggressive targets for next year.
Yeah.
And that, unlike other operational costs, these savings this year's savings provide a base for realizing next year's savings. So we monitor those separately, or they're just incorporated?
Well, they get embedded within the budgets, but in all our budget, what we always do in our budgets, we always show changes from the prior plan. So one of the changes is an agency is going to take those savings and put it into what we call a BRP, or a budget reduction program, which lowers their baseline, but that means we're taking out the savings from below the line. If in the course of a budget plan they realize that maybe a budgeted program to save isn't happening, they're going to have to take that out. So that's an additional category of reconciliation change. So not only we have increases, decreases, we call them BRP adjustments. That's where something might actually achieve greater savings, so it would be a higher savings. But we definitely track those, and we track we track them all, but on in terms of an official basis, we track on a quarterly basis all those programs that have savings that annualize to over $1 million. And I send to the State Controller's Office a report quarterly that they monitor as well.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Finance Watch is next with Pat McCoy.
Good afternoon. Finance Watch appears on page 20 of Director's Desk. Just a few transactions to report. Last week on June 14th, we took bidding on $1.6 billion in bond anticipation notes in 2 tranches. The first tranche, the B1s of $800 million, matures May 15th of 2020. We had 73 unique bids. The second tranche of $800 million matures May 15th of 2021. We had 64 unique bids. Multiple firms took notes from this transaction. We were very pleased with the results. The all-in TIC, true interest cost for the notes, was 1.95%. The average life is 2.4 years for the life of the notes. So that will close tomorrow. And the proceeds will be used for existing approved transit and commuter capital projects. We have two transactions coming up. I'll just report these as one item. These are TBTA, general revenue bonds, that are currently in the variable rate mode. We're affecting a change of the liquidity provider from the incumbent provider, Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi, to State Street Bank. Those transactions are well underway, and they're scheduled to close on June 27th. And again, this is just part of our, as a bank facility comes up for renewal, we solicit pricing and capacity from the bank community, and we were pleased with State Street's proposal and are working with them on this. Lastly, on May 29th, we executed a diesel fuel hedge for 2.8 million gallons of ULSD. The winning bid was submitted by Goldman Sachs, J. Aaron, and the all-in price was $2.16 a gallon. Happy to take any questions if there are any at this point. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Moving to MTA headquarter and all agency items, we have an action item that's to move the MTA HQ. The 2018 State Public Work Enforcement Fund Assessment. The 2018 State Public Work Investment Fund Assessment, PWEF staff summary appears on page 30. We are asking the board to authorize a sum of $1,651,000. $2,908,107 represents the state assessment on the MTA and its constituent agencies for the Public Work Enforcement Fund for the calendar year 2018, less a 2017 overpayment of $1,256,980. The number is calculated at 0.1% of the value of public work construction contracts entered into. Monies are used by New York State to enforce the prevailing wage law.
Any questions? Have a motion, please? Second? I hear a second. I'll second it. All those in favor? Any opposed?
We have 3 report and information items. The first is the contract change order report for the first quarter of 2018. That appears on page 31. Included is the capital contract change order, which is also reported to the CPOC committee. And next item is the information technology report, which will be presented by Sid Gelino. That report is on Director's Desk, Exhibit Book, and can also be found on the MTA website at mta.info.
I'm sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to update the Finance Committee on the major system initiatives and strategies that IT is going through today. First, IT continues to drive savings by using our resources more efficiently across the agencies. This is a progressive report. As you see in 2015, we took cuts. 16, 17 and 18, those cuts mostly came from outer years on the cuts we took earlier, so we budget out 5 years. And also, we restructured through the help of procurement some contracts where we took, perfect example of an Esri GIS contract that all the agencies had one. We consolidated, had one MTA global EAL agreement with Esri. So total savings since the inception is $171 million. Where IT stands, basically looking at other transportation organizations across the nation, percent budget spent on IT versus the corporate budget, we're again in the second quartile, which is good. We're at 2.3%. The average for the industry is 3.6%. Number of headcounts versus total employees of the MTA. Again, we're in the second quartile at 1.7 versus 3%, the medium. And actually, IT spend versus per employee. Again, we're in the second quartile at $5,600 versus $8,700. One of the major and biggest initiatives we're working now is IT rationalization. In 2017, we took an inventory. We had 920 applications. 584 of them are in scope for rationalization. So out of that 584, we identified 298 that will fit into projects that we have underway. And the bottom right is some projects that we're working on, new fare payment, as you know about, the EAM. So the numbers you see, there are 28 different fare payment applications out there today. We're hoping to get that down to 1 or 2 with the new fare payment system. Enterprise asset management, I have 76 different asset management systems out there. Using EAM, we're going to get them down as much as possible. Kronos timekeeping system, and it goes on and on. So my major responsibility now is to try to reduce those number of applications and get that done as quick as possible so we can realize additional savings. And this is just a timeline. We want to illustrate to you the size and complexity of these projects. So enterprise asset management, as you see, we've got out to 2022. And what we're doing is looking at all the asset management systems across the agencies, trying where possible to come up with common business processes, and then moving them over to the new product, the Infor product that the MTA purchased. We're taking manageable bite-sized chunks. We don't want to go with eat the whole apple at one time and risk failure. We're manageable pieces. The same thing we're doing with new fare payment, which you know about. The other big one we're working on is a content management system. And what that is a document management system. We've got plenty of them out there today. We pick the product. We're in procurement to help a vendor come in and help us do the in-store. But again, this takes years. The New York City Transit's law department and materials department, their document management system is humongous. It's just huge. And then we're working on the Kronos timekeeping system. Some other multi-year initiatives we're working on is we're updating all our file service from Windows 2003 to Windows 2008 or 2012. We're in the process of upgrading our desktops to Windows 2010. We've got 25,000 desktops in the environment. We've got about 8,000 done so far. Data center optimization, we've got 5 major data centers. We're looking to modernize those data centers where possible, where we have to, and in some cases actually getting these systems out of the MTA proper and getting them into the cloud. We have a cloud-first mentality here now. And another major one, another major initiative is we're finishing up at the end of the year the upgrade, the modernization of next generation network for New York City Transit. Next up will be Metro North and Long Island Railroad. Accomplishments for 2017. On the IT side, we install ServiceNow, which is the nervous system for IT. It does asset management, change management, inventory, and help desk functionality. We're always upgrading cybersecurity platforms. We try to stay ahead of the curve as much as possible. We deliver dashboards internally for PMO tracking and non-PMO tracks work that we're doing. We're upgrading the identity management system, so each employee has one electronic identity across the enterprise. On the agency side, we completed the B Division countdown clock rollout. We continue to look at SCADA security and ICS security systems. We've created dashboards for the operational agencies. We have Long Island Railroad's PCI compliant, which is brand new. This is the first time we've done it. And we renewed New York City Transit and Metro North PCI compliance. And out at Long Island Railroad, we did the onboard ticket selling machines. Goals for 2018. Continue to upgrade our cybersecurity platforms. We're doing a hardware upgrade on the PeopleSoft and additional disaster recovery up in Albany. Continue the desktop rollout of Windows 10 and a new mainframe support contract. We had a contract with IBM that came due. Last month, I believe the board approved a 1-year extension. There's an RFP that I guess we're getting ready to award any time day now. On the agency side, complete the New York City Transit network, begin the upgrades to Metro North and Long Island Railroad's network. And one real important thing is to complete the proof of concept of UWB CBTC, proof of concept 2. And that's just getting the UWB system and communications talking to the back-end CBTC system. Continue rollout of enterprise asset management. And we're purchasing a mainframe for redundancy of AFC. We've had some issues with, on the AFC side, it's a 20-year-old system, so we're buying an additional refurbished mainframe to give us greater redundancy. Concerns that we have, we always have concerns about getting qualified people in and how quickly we can do that. We've done job fairs. We're interviewing on weekends in partnership with HR. We're advertising the MTA IT brand. And we continue to try to develop the current staff, I call it retooling, getting them up to speed on the new technologies and programming needs. And we're assessing, we continue to assess with the hiring restrictions meantime. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I was happy to hear Mr. Gelano's statement that we were going to a cloud-first posture on our IT, and I think that puts us where the rest of the world has been for quite some time. So I'm happy to know that. However, I'm seeing that we're talking about a new procurement for mainframe redundancy. How does that make sense?
Until AFC is replaced, and I believe that's the later part of 2022, debit credit is the largest application running on our IBM mainframe. As we make changes to move to a new bank and as we get ready, we still have to support that. Our routing customers require or depend on the debit credit system. We have quite honestly had some failures over the last couple of months with that system going down. So this is really to make sure that we can ensure that our existing debit credit environments up and running and out there for our routing customers.
Do I understand, trying to put those two statements together, do I understand that the Business Service Center will be looking to ultimately abandon its reliance on mainframes and rely more on the cloud?
The Business Service Center, the PeopleSoft environment are not running on the mainframe. Right now, running on the mainframe, we've got Talon, we've got MapStore, pension checks, and the largest system on there is AFC today. So the plan is eventually, once AFC is renewed, we can retire that mainframe. So that's our plan, long-term plan.
Any other questions by any other board member? I appreciate the presentation. I just want to, in the work and the progress you've made, is that you need to keep pushing the envelope with your staff to reduce the number of applications and to eliminate the era where every agency sort of like did its own IT thing. There's one centralized IT operation. It's one strategic plan. It's one system, not 10 or 12 systems. So whatever we can do to continue to rationalize the applications and continue to reduce redundancy and do IT in a smarter way is going to lead us in a better place, both in terms of cost savings, but in improving the efficiency of the overall agency.
Yes, I understand that.
All right, thank you.
Okay. David Ross is going to present update on the procurement consolidation.
We're having
Just
an
waiting
IT
for
problem.
the presentation to come up on this.
What happened to warp speed here?
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So first, I'll start with some of the key accomplishments of the. Why is this not responding? Okay, first I'll start with some of the key accomplishments of the past year. Besides my coming on, we moved and integrated 39 people from New York City Transit, and that completed the bringing on of the people that could do non-core procurements, and all of the non-core procurements have been routed now to the BSC, so they're going through the BSC. We've also expanded the marketplace tremendously. We have the Staples Advantage program. Staples is on the marketplace. MRO with Grainger products is on the marketplace, and we have IT software and peripherals from CDW. We expect to bring Dell on shortly. And next year, I expect when we award contracts pursuant to this very large RFP we have on the street for MRO products with 14 different categories, that should be a very substantial expansion of the marketplace where people can go in and find the items that they want in a hurry. So we're really leveraging the PeopleSoft technology there. I can't move slide. Okay, so the next slide you'll see is the procurement organization. I did make some changes, so I'll describe them to you briefly. If you look at the bottom line, you'll see that 3 of the 5 major groups in procurement are actually doing procurements, meaning they're doing RFPs and they're doing bids. They're grouped based on the services that they involve and the commodities that they involve. So people are familiarizing themselves with areas, for example, in the first group, technology and communications, the second with facilities and real estate, and the last is doing professional services procurements. They also have a common client base. So it's largely the same people they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So we're trying to cultivate a working relationship with the different client departments and have regular meetings so that we can plan procurements in advance and not bring retroactive procurements, of course, to the board, and then still anticipate things in advance and have new contracts going in the proper time. There's a 4th group there, the operations and support group is the group that manages technology and batch functions within procurement. So they man the bid desk, and they're managing our PeopleSoft technology and providing training both within procurement and outside in leveraging the technology that we have for procurement. The last group was kept whole when we moved it over from New York City Transit. It was originally envisioned that it would be dispersed somewhat through procurement, but we've kept it together, and I think it's very important to do it that way. These people manage contracts on a day-to-day basis, so there's a handoff from procurement to the people who manage the services, and this group manages an array of previously New York City Transit-wide procurements that are going to evolve over time into MTA-wide contracts for uniforms and for credit cards and shoes and boots. And they also, very importantly, have provided a training function within New York City Transit that, again, we're expanding to be an MTA-wide function so that people know their responsibilities when they're managing contracts on a day-to-day basis. So I'll talk about that in a few moments. The next slide offers order throughput and velocity. So I know there was a lot of discussion last year about the inventory of procurements that were waiting for completion at the BSC. So what this slide does is it shows what's happened in the year since. So comparing January to May of last year, 2017, with this year, you'll see there was a 79% increase in throughput at the BSC. That many more transactions going through the Business Service Center. And also comparing the green with red, if you look at the red there, we're showing 6 times as many procurements going through using the strategic sourcing method, which is leveraging technology to conduct our procurements. So we're doing more procurements than we were last year by 80% and 600% more leveraging the technology that we have. And of course, the result of that, despite the fact that we're doing so many more transactions, you'll see that we've reduced the time it takes to process a transaction by 34%, from 62 days to 41 days, and I expect in the coming year we're going to do better than that. So I think no matter how much you measure it, we're doing more using technology, and we're doing things more quickly than we were a year before. So I'm very pleased with our team on that. The next slide shows the open requisitions in procurement. So you'll see the numbers stabilized over the past few months, but what those numbers don't reflect, of course, is that the volumes are much larger and the things that are with us are moving through more quickly than they were in the past. The next slide is one that shows you the MTA procurement projected savings, both in the current year from the procurements that we've done and through the years going forward. The next 2 slides I think are important slides and give you a sense for what our direction is and our emphasis is. And they show you 4 different initiatives that leverage technology to eliminate steps that don't add value in the procurement process. So I'll just give you the first one, and I'll leave the rest for you to read on your own. But the first one, the auto dispatch, when we receive a requisition now, it automatically generates a PO for those contracts where we have a contract already in place and where there's budget. The principle is there's nothing more for procurement to do, so there's no need for procurement to have gone through the manual step of creating purchase orders. And without going into a lot of detail, that's what each one of these processes attempt to do, is eliminate non-value add steps where we have an existing contract, we have an existing price agreement, there's a budget. We don't need to process a procurement transaction the old way. These things can happen electronically. If we skip now to slide number 9, these provide a fair amount of narrative, so I'll just give you some context for them and let you read them, and if you have any questions, you can certainly ask. Slides 9 through 12 show key contracts that were awarded during the past year. Most of them actually came to the board, so you've seen them before, but it's a summary of what we've done in the past year, and slides 13 through 15 show some of the key planned procurements that we have for the coming year, so you'll expect to see me in the next several months bringing those contracts to you. Most notably the maintenance materials contract, but some other important contracts and initiatives as well. And I'll close by just referring to slide number 16, which I started with a little bit earlier when I was talking through the procurement groups that we have. And that's the system-wide. I'll let him catch up. So these are all the different initiatives that we have going, what's next to the different procurements that we're doing in the coming year. We can go to, so the last slide. So this is the contracts management group that we've kept whole, and the principle here is that they're providing training throughout the MTA to people who manage the contract relationship. And that's a very important discipline that I think often gets overlooked. The day we award a contract, that contract is handed over to a client department, and they're expected to manage the contract, know what they're supposed to be doing when they validate invoices, know what the insurance requirements of the contract are, make sure that the MTA is getting full value out of those contracts. And there's been training in New York City Transit on that discipline, but not as much throughout the MTA. So we are now having very regularly scheduled classes and reaching out to all of the MTA family agencies to invite people who are managing contracts in, and we go through a day-and-a-half program in what their responsibilities are for managing contract, and we have various speakers from different places. Someone comes in from risk management, does a piece from there. We have somebody from the IG's office comes in and speaks on those responsibilities as well. So not only are they expanding on the contracts that they are managing system-wide, but they're also providing training in contracts management throughout the system. So that's it for the presentation. Back to you, Doug.
Any questions from any of the board members?
Do you want to just keep going with the procurements, David?
Sure. So I'll start for headquarters. There are 9 procurement actions for a total of $24,023,630. There are 4 non-competitive procurement actions for a total of about $4.7 million. 2 are preferred source purchases. 1 is a personal service contract, and there's a modification to an existing personal service contract. There are 2 competitive procurement actions for a total of about $3.7 million. 1 is a personal service contract. The other is a modification to an existing agreement. There are 3 procurement actions for ratification pursuant to Executive Order 168 and its extensions for a grand total of about $15.6 million. All 3 items are for New York City Transit.
Questions?
Yes, I had a question about the PwC contract. No matter how many times I read it, I had no idea what was going on, and I admit I'm an imbecile when it comes to IT, but could you just explain what that's doing?
It's the PwC. It's the Enterprise Intranet Portal. I guess I should start by just saying that the contract is to design and plan what will ultimately be used for a procurement to redo the portal. Maybe you will elaborate on that.
So again, when I was earlier talking about retooling the skill sets within IT, we don't have the skill set right now to go through and make a determine what's best breed when we look at internet portals and stuff. So we just wanted an outside firm to come in and set us in the right direction, help us set up these new techniques for designing this stuff. So that's what this contract's about.
I'm sorry, it says $800,000 to do exactly what?
So it's the redesign of the total intranet, which is internal to us. That is also going to be put out in the cloud, so there's probably ongoing maintenance associated with that. The goal is to, again, unify and modernize the MTA's corporate internet solution. So it's also cloud-based and 6 months of personal service agreements to help us design that.
And we're leveraging a New York State contract for these services.
Guys, I'm going to make a suggestion. I probably share Carl's confused. It's still a little confusing in terms of what we're getting for this contract, how this is going to improve agency efficiency, reduce costs, put us in the 22nd century. So I'm going to make a suggestion, unless you tell me that the world is going to come to an end if we don't act on it this month, that we pull it and have time to answer get some questions answered so that everyone understands in more kind of lay term English what it is we're actually voting on. Does that make sense to everybody?
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's fine, yeah.
So we'll pull that one from the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't object to it. I just don't understand
No, but I felt your pain, and I thought it would be worthwhile, since you were the bravest one on here, to ask the question.
So
to show my lack of knowledge.
let me just add one thing. Again, this would fall under rationalization also, because in today's world, each agency has their own intranet site look and feel. Again, we're trying to bring it together, but we'll get to...
I understand, but nobody really understood what that meant anyway. So we need to understand what it all means in English. Commissioner Paley.
On the Long Island Railroad audiovisual paging system, which we all agree is essential, can you explain how this contract fits in with the advertising contract we already did and are going to be incorporating at the stations? How the two work together?
So,
Man, I'm not objecting to this. This is something which is essential. I know we did that already. I'm just trying to figure out how the two are going to work together.
So I'll offer what I do know is that the system provides real-time, on-time performance information, train status, and customer service orientation messages to passengers at 123 stations. It has a few major components, including head-end AVPS utilizing servers and associated servers and circuit interfaces, user workstations capable of making live and pre-recorded announcements, schedule messages, as well as automated exception messages to Long Island Railroad stations in the AVPS. There's a back-end AVPS utilizing station computers, digital audio processors, amplifiers, ambient noise sensing microphones, speakers, and visual messaging displays, associated station AVP equipment. If you're looking for more than that, I would have to ask someone from a
I don't want to hold this up. This is,
more.
This is so important. It should have been done 10 years ago. And the staff summary says that to some degree. But if before Wednesday we could get an understanding of how the two systems work together, Mr. Chairman, that might help those of us understand that context, and that would be okay?
Yeah, let's make sure that happens. Otherwise, we'll end up pulling it from the
Which I don't want to do.
The agenda at Wednesday's meeting. I think that's fair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So with that all, so we're going to pull the one item and leave the rest on and contingent on getting some answers regarding the advertising contract. So with that, do I have a motion to approve? Second. I'll second. All those in favor? Opposed?
So for Metro North, there's a request to award a contract not to exceed $3,619,908 for Conductrix pursuant to a competitive RFP. Conductrix will design, fabricate, build, and deliver fiberglass third rail brackets. Metro North is also seeking to use the RFP design build process for the installation of DC traction switchgear at 9 Metro North stations.
Questions? Motion. I'll second. All those in favor? Opposed?
For Long Island Railroad, there's a request to award a non-competitive contract not to exceed $960,725 to purchase replacement parts with Knox Kershaw, an OEM manufacturer, and to award a competitively negotiated contract with Mority and Sons for $14,325,000 to design, build, and install a prefabricated traction power substation.
Questions? Motion? Second. All those in favor? Opposed?
For New York City Transit, there's a request to approve an estimated $10.8 million contract to UPMC Benefit Management Services for FMLA administration services, and a request to authorize the use of competitive RFP design build process for ADA improvements, including the installation of elevators at multiple subway stations.
Questions? Second. All those in favor? Opposed?
There are 3 items for bridges and tunnels totaling $147.7 million. The first is a request to use a competitive RFP process for miscellaneous construction services on an as-needed basis for an estimated $120 million over 4 years. Next is the proposed award of an estimated $19.7 million personal services contract for construction, inspection, and administrative services associated with the replacement of the roadway deck on the Throgs Neck Bridge to Greenman-Peterson. Lastly, we have a modification to a personal services contract with Weidlinger Associates, adding about $8 million for design and construction support services associated with the Throgs Neck Bridge deck replacement.
Questions? Motion? Second. All those in favor? Opposed?
There are no items for FEMTAC. This concludes procurement. Back to Doug.
Thank you. So the MTA consolidated financial and operational reports are on pages 68 to 121 for your review. And next we have David Florio with the real estate portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Doug. We have 10 action items for your consideration. For Long Island Railroad, we have a license agreement for a newsstand at Hempstead Station. We have a joint staff summary for ATMs at Long Island Railroad and Metro North stations. And finally, a license agreement for a newsstand at Lynbrook Station. For New York City Transit, we have the disposition of air rights on Day Street here in New York. We have a release renewal of an existing agreement with Concord Business Services for parking and equipment storage. A license agreement to the next 2 F and G are in support of the Canarsie Tunnel project. First is parking and an open-air bus terminal under the FDR. That's with city-owned EDC land. And the next is an agreement with New Jersey Transit to use Port Authority land near the Michael J. Quill bus depot on the west side. And the last transit item is a lease of space for an employee comfort facility. For Metro North, we have a separate license agreement for an ATM at the White Plains Station and a lease renewal for Newhouse Inc. for a existing retail facility in Grand Central Terminal. Happy to answer any questions. There's also additional, there was an info item left off the agenda. It was presented to you before the meeting.
Okay, questions? Commissioner?
A couple of questions. Who is Access One?
They are a third-party vendor. They provide ATMs. They were the lone proposer for both the separate RFPs, so Metro North and Long Island Railroad.
Because they're not any particular bank. Everybody would have an ATM surcharge for the use of their machine, correct?
That's correct.
And in the in the issue of the storage near Port Authority for those buses during the Canarsie Tube shutdown. So those buses are going to deadhead between the 14th Street area and the Port Authority area when they're done in service?
Actually, 14th Street will actually be on the FDR will be an actually open air bus terminal, as opposed to deadhead parking over on the west side.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, on the ATM issue, I assume do we know what the service charge is going to be for people?
Yes, $3 per transaction. Okay. We get 56% of that.
It was my understanding we have an ATM in this building. Who services that?
That's a separate agreement with MCU, Municipal Credit Union.
Why didn't we go back to them?
They were offered a RFP. They didn't propose.
They just didn't respond to the RFP?
That's correct.
Okay.
We had agreements with a variety of banks. Bank of America being one.
Bank of America solely for the Long Island Railroad.
Bank of America being the only one. Well, what were the arrangements at the Metro North stations?
It was Wells Fargo had 10 stations. Originally it was Wachovia. They were later bought by Wells Fargo.
Okay.
And over the last 8 years, Wells Fargo has they've been on month to month. They've powered down and gotten down to just white planes.
Is it so therefore the two banks that had arrangements with us, let me phrase it that way, have now both decided, other than the one station at White Plains, to get out of the ATM MTA business, for lack of a better term.
Bank of America closed their last ATMs with us this past January.
Right. Is there a reason why?
They indicated to us that these are not money makers for them. It really wasn't. There seems to be kind of a trend. The market spoke through this RFP.
Right.
The only bank that we're aware of, or familiar with, Wells Fargo, just wanted a high ridership White Plains station.
Just wanted White Plains.
Sure.
Right. So therefore, the assumption being it costs them more money at some of the stations than they made because there was no surcharge, and they did not believe that the convenience for their customers was enough.
I'd have to presume so.
No surcharge for their bank.
That's what I mean.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Surcharge for everyone else.
Well, yeah, in some cases. But the assumption being that convenience was no longer enough of a benefit to anyone. Okay. Thank you.
On that same procurement, my concern with Access One, because I've heard of them, but are we assured, or are we reasonably assured that they're taking proper security measures for our customers, people who use this? I don't want to get in the situation where there's attachment scanners. There's been a lot of scams around ATMs, and that may be another reason why banks want to get out of it.
We've checked. We've done background checks on them. They've been used elsewhere. That's our sole point of reference, is making sure that they've been in other systems or other cities as well. So we've done that kind of check on them.
And there hasn't been reported problems, I assume.
To my knowledge, yeah.
Okay.
Recuse on item 1I, please.
On the issue of the surcharge, is there going to be a requirement that at the site or at each site, people will be aware that there will be a $3 surcharge for each transaction?
We'll ensure that there is. Usually there is. They say it's $3. Do you want to proceed? It's yes or no.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't use ATMs anymore.
I thought that was a regulation.
Maybe I'm a bad example.
No, they all say if you want to continue.
Okay, so it gives you the opportunity not to do the transaction before you pay.
I think that's a law.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that people had that option. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner?
I just wanted to commend the real estate department on the Day Street and Broadway deal, which is very thoughtful, forward-looking sale of air rights. So congratulations.
Can I have a motion? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We done with real estate. Okay. Next, can I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor? Thank you.